Chapter 64 End of the Road. Within a few minutes of arriving back at Corunna, the Solarium was unloaded and unpacked into the facility's secure storage. "Call Dr. Robert," ordered Sebastian. "I want him to recommence his work as soon as possible." The atmosphere had been electric since the Solarium had been recovered. The whole of Sepulchre were celebrating the organization's success once again. Barnaby was particularly happy. The recovery of the Solarium had meant that he would definitely get to go home to his time, there was no question. Up until the recovery of the Solarium, it had been more of a question of, if there's enough. No, there was plenty to go around. As he quietly congratulated himself, and thanked his lucky stars, Dr. Robert walked into the storage area. "Ah, Dr. Robert, good to see," said Sebastian, reaching out his hand to welcome him. "When can you start?" "As soon as I get my laboratory coat on, sir," replied Dr. Robert. "Excellent, Barnaby, and I will retire to my on-site offices. Keep me apprised, please, Dr. Robert." "Yes, sir, of course." As Sebastian and Barnaby settled into the offices, Dr. Robert retrieved a small sample of the recovered Solarium to test it against existing results, in order to rate its consistency. The initial results were bad. The substance in storage looked like Solarium and had initially tested as Solarium, but whenever Dr. Robert tried to activate the samples, they just poofed out of existence. He had tried and tried, thinking it was simply a bad batch, but it was all starting to look bad. He had no option. He was going to have to tell Sebastian. "What do you mean?" screamed Sebastian into the handset. Barnaby winced as the phone call proceeded. Whoever was on the other end of the call was not having a good time. The phone hitting the cradle signified there was no more to be said. "Is everything okay, sir?" asked Barnaby tentatively. "No, Barnaby, it is not," screamed Sebastian. "They've duped us, they've swindled us, and they've ripped us off." Sebastian was about to explode. "I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand," said Barnaby, fighting to work out what was actually going on before Sebastian expired. "That Graham and Bouncer, they've double-crossed us, that's what. What we have recovered and is now safely stored in our secure storage is not Solarium." "What do you mean, sir?" "We tested it when we recovered it, and it was perfect." "I know, Barnaby, but Dr. Robert has been trying to activate it for more experiments, and it simply disintegrates. It's nothing but worthless material. Somehow they have duped us and hidden the real Solarium. Dr. Robert has been trying to find it with the televiewer, but it has simply disappeared from existence." "What can we do?" asked Barnaby. "Nothing for now. Dr. Robert said he had an idea, but we won't know for a few days if it will come to anything. We just have to wait and see." "Can't we simply kidnap them and make them tell us?" asked Barnaby. "I can't see how that will work, Barnaby. They are always one step ahead of us. If we waste any more time on them, we will be simply fooling ourselves. The time has come to move forward, not look back. Once we have a solution, then we'll make them pay for the trouble they have caused." "Sir, I propose a plan with what little Solarium we have," said Barnaby. "Go on, Barnaby, don't keep it to yourself," replied Sebastian, barely keeping his temper in check. "Well, sir, this Graham and Bouncer are far more than fancy technology. There is something about them, something beyond what we understand. What if I were to trace them through time? Find out how and where they come from? Perhaps this whole sorry event could be put behind us." "Yes, of course, we still have 5 kilograms of Solarium left. We know the location of their farm. We can simply hit it several times with the televiewer to find when they first come onto the scene and then hopefully deal with them there and then." "A wonderful plan, Barnaby." Sebastian was now looking much happier. "Put it in motion." As Sepulchre were reeling from the realization they had been sold a lie at the same time as celebrating their new plan, Graham and Bouncer were back on the farm, taking it easy in vehicle mode in the barn. "Morning, Graham, Bouncer," said Farmer as he walked into the barn. "Good to see you boys again. Are you home to stay this time?" "Defo, Farmer," replied Graham. "We have lots of work to catch up on, I guess. Our travels are over for a while." "I'm very glad to hear it," smiled Farmer. I have missed you boys, come on then, saddle up, we have sheep to herd. As the sun rose, the trio started off up the mountain trail to take care of the sheep. All was good on the farm. The boys were happy to be home, and Farmer was happy to have his favorite helpers back. With no more solarium, Dr. Robert had to find a way to emulate it. From his experiments working with the real thing, he had learned plenty about its structure and properties. Over the following weeks, Dr. Robert worked diligently to discover a solarium recipe, but everything he tried failed. Every combination of materials failed. Every idea he had failed. Then one day, as Dr. Robert resigned himself to his complete failure, he accidentally swapped the sample he was testing for that of an Antarctic meteorite that someone had left in the wrong place. It had been found years before, left in storage apparently worthless, but today, in the conditions designed for solarium activation, this gray lump sparked and flashed. The energy meters went off the dial. As Dr. Robert reran the experiment, the blue flash illuminated his smiling face. For the first time in weeks, he had some good news. His hands and voice shaking, Dr. Robert picked up the phone and called Sebastian. "Sir, we have found a solarium replacement.